My fiancée called me her credit card with emotions, not knowing I was listening, so I recorded everything and exposed her at a family BBQ. Now, her own parents disowned her, and she had to flee the city. I'm 31 years old. I work in tech and I make good money. I'm not gonna lie. And what happened to me a few months ago still has me processing everything, because I basically discovered that the last 2 years of my life were a complete lie. You know that feeling when you realize that the person you were going to marry, the one who supposedly loved you, actually only saw your bank account? But let me start from the beginning because this whole story is crazy and I need to get it off my chest. I met Rachel like 2.5 years ago on a dating app, one of those typical ones where everyone puts their best photos and basically lies about how much they go to the gym. She was 27 at the time. I was 29. And honestly, from the start, I thought she was amazing. She was pretty. I mean, really pretty. And when we talked, it seemed like we had a lot in common. She liked indie films, said she preferred quiet dinners to clubs, talked about her dreams of working in graphic design, all those things that make you think you found someone special, you know? And the first date was at an Italian restaurant that wasn't too expensive, nothing fancy, and it was perfect. We talked for hours, laughed so much, and when I drove her back to her apartment that night, I thought, okay, Jordan, maybe this is the one. The first few months were like a movie, seriously. Rachel was attentive, affectionate. She'd send me sweet messages during the day asking how my day was going. We'd cook together on weekends, watch series, cuddled up on the couch. I was working at a software startup that was growing pretty fast and things were going really well for me financially, but I never flaunted it. I lived in a decent but not luxurious apartment, drove a nice car but nothing crazy, like a 2020 Honda Accord, and my outings with Rachel were to normal places. She never asked for anything extravagant at first, never gave signs that money mattered to her. In fact, she insisted on paying her share sometimes, which I thought was super mature and refreshing compared to other relationships I'd had. After like 6 months, we started talking about the future, those conversations about whether we wanted to get married someday, have kids, where we saw ourselves in 5 years. Rachel said she dreamed of a simple, happy life, that material things didn't matter as much to her as being with someone who valued and respected her. I had fallen completely in love. I'm not going to deny it. My best friend Isaac told me I was moving too fast, that I barely knew her, but I was in that stage where you think you finally found your person and you don't want to hear warnings. After a year of being together, I decided to propose. I had planned everything for weeks. Made a reservation at a beautiful vineyard like 2 hours from the city, hired a discreet photographer, bought a ring that wasn't super cheap but not crazy either, like $8,000 I think. Something nice and meaningful. It was a spring Saturday. The weather. I was perfect. And when I knelt down among the vines with the sunset in the background and asked if she wanted to marry me, Rachel cried and said yes immediately. She hugged me so tight she almost knocked me over, kept repeating that I was the man of her dreams, that she loved me more than anything in the world. That night we had dinner at the vineyard, toasted with champagne, made plans about what our wedding would be like. I was on cloud 9, literally felt like my life was falling into perfect place. But here's where things start to change. Though I didn't see it clearly at the time, because I was too happy and in love. As soon as we got engaged, Rachel started talking a lot more about the wedding, which was normal, I guess. But her expectations started escalating in a way that surprised me. At first, she talked about an intimate ceremony with close family and friends, but suddenly she was showing me photos of venues that cost like $50,000 just to rent the space. When I told her, maybe we could look for something more moderate, she'd get a little distant and say things like, "Oh, honey, it's our special day. We only get married once." And I, like an idiot, thought, well, she's right. It's an important event in our lives. Then she started with the dress. Rachel showed me designs for wedding dresses that literally cost $15,000, $20,000, amounts that seemed crazy to me, but she insisted she had always dreamed of a designer dress. She also wanted a honeymoon in the Maldives, at those luxury resorts where one night costs like $2,000, and when I suggested places just as beautiful but more affordable, she'd get upset and say I didn't value making our marriage something special. I started feeling pressure. Honestly, but I told myself that maybe I was being cheap, that if I could give my future wife that dream day, why not do it? It wasn't just the wedding. Rachel started wanting upgrades in general. Suddenly her car was too old, according to her, even though it was a 2016 Toyota that worked perfectly, and she started sending me links to new luxury SUVs. When I bought her a nice necklace for her birthday, she thanked me, but then mentioned she'd always wanted one from Tiffany's specifically. She wanted us to move to a bigger, more expensive apartment, redecorate it with expensive furniture, more frequent and extravagant vacations. I made good money, like I said, but I wasn't a millionaire, and I was starting to feel like money was going out much faster than it was coming in. My friend Isaac noticed the change too. One day he said to me, "Dude, don't you think it's weird that Rachel suddenly wants all these expensive things? She wasn't like that before." And I got defensive. Told him people change when they get engaged, that it's normal to want to build a nice life together. Isaac just shook his head and said, "Okay, but be careful." I wish I had listened to him more at that moment, but I was completely blinded. Then came the day that changed everything, and it was the most random one possible. It was a Tuesday afternoon, like 6 p.m. I had left work early because I had a headache, and Rachel didn't know I was already home. She was in our bedroom. I think she thought I'd arrive later like always, and she was talking on the phone with someone. I was walking down the hallway toward the bedroom to change clothes when I heard her voice, and something in her tone made me stop. I don't know why, it was instinct, but I stood there outside the door that was barely ajar. Rachel was laughing. That laugh I'd never heard before, like mocking and cruel, and she was saying things that at first I didn't process well. She said something like, "No, girl. Seriously, this guy is a total simp. I tell him I want something, and he buys it for me without thinking twice." And then her friend on the other side must have said something, because Rachel let out another laugh and responded, "Obviously I don't love him. Are you crazy? But the guy is rich, and super easy to manipulate." I put on a sad face and he gives me whatever. It's literally like having an unlimited credit card with emotions. I froze. It felt like my brain wasn't processing what I was hearing properly, you know? That feeling when something so horrible is happening that your mind refuses to accept it right away. I kept listening, unable to move now, while Rachel continued. She said the ring had seemed small to her, but that she was going to make me buy a better one eventually, that the wedding was going to be exactly how she wanted because I was too weak to say no to her, and that after the marriage she'd have access to all my money and could live like a queen without ever having to work again. She said, word for word, I trapped him like a fish, just need to seal it at the wedding. I don't know how long I stood there like an idiot, but at some point my brain started working again and I took out my phone. With trembling hands, I opened the recording app and started recording the audio. I captured like 2 more minutes of conversation where Rachel kept making fun of me, saying I was kind of boring in bed, but that didn't matter because the money made up for everything. That her friends envied her for finding such an easy-to-control rich sucker. When I finally stopped the recording, I left the house quietly. I couldn't confront her at that moment because, honestly, I felt like I was going to throw up, or pass out, or both. I drove aimlessly for like an hour, literally not knowing where to go or what to do. I called Isaac crying. And when I say crying, I mean I couldn't even speak properly. And I told him everything. When I arrived, he gave me a whiskey, let me vent for like 2 hours, and then helped me think clearly. He told me I had to cut everything off with Rachel, obviously, but that I needed to do it in a way that she couldn't flip the story and make me look like the bad guy. Isaac is a lawyer, so he explained that technically the recording I made could be legally problematic depending on the state, but that either way, it was evidence of her true character. For the next few days, I acted normal with Rachel, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Every time she kissed me or told me she loved me or talked about the wedding, I felt disgusted, but I kept calm. I needed a plan. I needed her to get exactly what she deserved. Rachel kept acting like the perfect fiancée, with no idea that I knew everything, and that made everything worse because I could clearly see the act. She was good. I'm not gonna lie. If I hadn't overheard that call, I probably never would have realized. Then I came up with an idea that Isaac at first thought was too dramatic, but ended up supporting. We had an engagement barbecue planned at my house that weekend with close friends and family, like 30 people. Rachel had insisted on having this event, She wanted everyone to celebrate our engagement, for everyone to see her ring and hear her talk about the perfect wedding she was planning. Perfect, I thought. That's going to be the stage. I prepared everything in secret. I connected my phone to the Bluetooth speakers I had on the patio, the same ones we'd used to play music during the barbecue. The day came. It was a super nice Saturday. Everyone was in the yard drinking beer, eating, laughing. Rachel was in her element, showing the ring to my cousins, talking to my mom about wedding plans, acting like the perfect daughter-in-law. My parents loved her so much. They thought she was sweet and genuine, and seeing how she had them fooled too filled me with rage. About halfway through the event, I asked for everyone's attention, said I wanted to make a special toast. Rachel smiled at me so proudly, probably thinking I was going to say something romantic about how much I loved her. I raised my glass and said something like, "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate with us." And before the toast, I want to share something special about my relationship with Rachel, something I think you all should hear. And then I pressed play. Rachel's voice filled the entire patio. This guy is a total simp. I tell him I want something and he buys it for me without thinking twice. Rachel's face changed immediately from the perfect smile to pure horror. She tried to run toward the speakers, but Isaac got in her way. "Obviously, I don't love him. Are you crazy? But the guy is rich and super easy to manipulate." The silence was absolute, except for the recording. I put on a sad face and he gives me whatever. It's literally like having an unlimited credit card with emotions. When the part I had recorded ended, like 2 minutes that felt eternal, I turned off the audio. Nobody spoke. Rachel was pale, completely white, with tears running down her face, but not from sadness, but from panic. She tried to say something like, "Jordan, I can explain. That's not what." But my mom interrupted her and yelled at her, "Get out of this house right now." My dad, who's super calm normally, approached her and said something I couldn't hear, but from her face it must have been heavy. Then I looked directly at Rachel and said, "Give me the ring." She started begging, "Jordan, please." It was a moment of stupidity. I didn't mean it. I was joking with my friend. "I really love you." All those things people say when they're caught. I just extended my hand and repeated, "The ring, now." She ended up taking it off with trembling hands and gave it to me. I told her we were done, that I never wanted to see her again, and that she had until Monday to get all her stuff out of my apartment, or I was going to throw it in the trash. Rachel tried to approach some people looking for support, but everyone literally turned their backs on her. Her best friend Allison, who was also at the barbecue, told her, "You're a horrible person," and left. Rachel's parents, her dad is a school teacher and her mom has a bakery, super hardworking and honest people, were there too because I had invited them. And I'll never forget the dad's disappointed face when he sought me out afterward and apologized for his daughter. He told me he hadn't raised her like that he was ashamed, and that if necessary he'd help with anything. I told him it wasn't his fault, that I appreciated his honesty. Rachel finally left the barbecue practically running, crying hysterically, and I found out later from Allison that her own parents confronted her that night and basically kicked her out of their house too. They told her they had raised her better, that they didn't want anything to do with someone capable of that manipulation and cruelty. Her friends, all of them, stopped talking to her. Her entire social circle disintegrated in literally 48 hours. The next few days were super weird for me. On one hand, I felt this satisfaction of having exposed the truth, of not having let her get away with it. But on the other hand, I was destroyed. I had planned my life with this person, had imagined having children with her, growing old together, all that, and discovering that none of it was real, that every "I love you" had been a lie, that every intimate moment had been calculated, that breaks something inside you that's hard to explain. I didn't sleep well for weeks. I kept going over all the moments of our relationship looking for signs I should have seen before. Isaac was there for me the whole time. My parents too, but I still felt like an idiot. Rachel tried to contact me like 1,000 times. Calls, messages, emails, everything. At first they were pleas, that please let's talk, that she could change, that she had made a mistake but really loved me. I blocked her number, but she got borrowed phones to keep calling. Then the messages became aggressive, saying I had ruined her life on purpose, that I was vindictive and abusive for exposing her publicly like that she was going to sue me for I don't know what. I never responded to anything. My lawyer, who's a friend of Isaac's, advised me to maintain zero contact and document all her attempts to communicate in case it escalated further. Like a month later, Rachel showed up at my office. I don't know how she got past reception, but suddenly she was in the lobby asking for me. My assistant warned me, and I called security immediately. But I went down to talk to her to make it clear I never wanted to see her again. She looked horrible, honestly. Looked like she hadn't slept in days, had dirty hair, smeared makeup. She grabbed my arm and started begging again, saying she had lost everything, that nobody would talk to her, that her own parents had disowned her, that I was all she had left. I told her that was exactly what she deserved, that I wasn't her lifeline or her bank account, and that if she had lost everything, it was because of her own actions. Security had to escort her out while she screamed that I would regret it, that someday I'd see that what we had was real. I found out through the grapevine, I think through a mutual friend who still had me added on social media, that Rachel tried to rebuild her life looking for another guy with money. She met a guy, Mitchell, who worked in finance or something, and they started dating. But Mitchell apparently was smarter than me or had better luck. I don't know. The thing is, he contacted me directly before things got serious with Rachel. He sent me a message on LinkedIn explaining he was dating my ex, that she had told him her version of why we broke up, where I was basically a controlling abuser, but that he wanted to hear my side. I told him everything, even sent him the recording, and Mitchell thanked me for saving him from making the same mistake I did. He cut everything off with Rachel immediately. She later sent me a message insulting me, telling me I had ruined her last chance to be happy, that I was miserable and wanted to see her suffer. I blocked her again. The last I heard, like 2 months ago, is that Rachel left the city. An ex-friend of hers, who I think still felt some pity, told me that Rachel had gotten a job in another state and had moved to start over. She said Rachel had finally admitted she'd screwed everything up, that she knew she'd never be able to fix her reputation here, and that she needed to go where nobody knew who she was. Honestly, I didn't feel anything when I found out, not satisfaction or sadness, just like relief that she was finally out of my life for real. Now I'm focused on myself, on my work, on spending time with people who genuinely care about me. I started therapy a few months ago because I realized I had trust issues, obviously, like fear of being in a relationship again and not seeing the signs that someone is using me. My therapist is helping me process everything, to understand that I wasn't an idiot for trusting, that manipulative people are experts at hiding their true intentions. I still have a hard time believing it. Honestly, I still feel stupid when I think about all the times Rachel asked me for expensive things and I gave them to her, thinking I was making the woman I loved happy. Isaac tells me that eventually I'll be ready to try again with someone else, that not all people are like Rachel, and I know he's right, but I'm not there right now. I'm scared, you know? I'm scared of falling in love again and discovering that once again, they only saw my bank account. I know it sounds bitter, but it's honest. Maybe with time I'll get over it completely. Maybe not, but at least now I know that if I see red flags, I won't ignore them because I'm in love. The thing is that looking back, there were signs I ignored. The way Rachel changed so quickly after the engagement, how suddenly everything revolved around material things, how she never really wanted to know my interests or passions beyond the superficial. But when you're in love, you convince yourself you're overreacting, that you're being paranoid, and you tell yourself everything is fine. That's the lesson I take away, I guess. That love doesn't have to blind you to that extent, that it's okay to ask questions and expect honest answers. I eventually sold the ring. Didn't want to have it in my house, reminding me of everything. With that money, I took a trip with Isaac to Japan, something we'd always wanted to do, but had never coordinated. It was good for my mental health. Disconnecting for 2 weeks. Seeing new places. Not thinking about Rachel, or the wedding that never was, or the 2 years I wasted. Isaac and I laughed a lot on that trip, and for the first time since everything happened, I felt like maybe I was going to be okay. Not perfect, not immediately, but okay eventually. And that's enough for now, I guess.